Hello, Lynchburg State students. I'm Tristan Brown, and I'm here today to help you with prepping for the math portions of the SAT. I know a lot of you probably don't know me. Maybe some of you do. Just for a little background about me, so you get to know me a little bit more, maybe trust what I'm doing just a little bit more. Like I said, I'm Tristan Brown. I'm from a place called Covington, Virginia, just a couple hours away from here in Lynchburg. I was a graduate of Allegheny High School in the class of 2019, so I'm just a few years removed from college myself. I'm currently studying at Liberty University to be a math education major. I'm going to hopefully be a high school teacher with that. That's usually the questions I get when I tell people that. They usually ask about what grade. So when you do a specific subject education degree, it's usually or almost always for high school. That being said, why I'm doing this, I was blessed with the opportunity to work at EC Glass through Beacon of Hope in the Future Center last year. And then I got the opportunity to do that for a few months. Then obviously 2020 happened and in-person stuff stopped happening. However, this year I was blessed, even though I can't be in the schools, which I would like to be. Beacon of Hope lets me now work from their direct office, and they presented me with this opportunity to make SAT prep videos since I'm the math guy. That's basically my purpose. And I was thrilled at the opportunity, and now that's finally all coming together with this. So that's me. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to this first video, just guide you through what all the math portion of the SAT entails. And then we're going to go through a sample problem at the end of the video. So let me share my screen and we'll get right on top of that. All right, so the SAT prep, and this is for the math with calculator section. One thing just before I go any further, even though this is for the calculator section, I'll tell you this and they'll tell you this when you take the SAT. Every problem that's on this section you can take or you can do without the calculator. Some problems you actually can't even use a calculator for on this section. They just let you have it for cumulatively for all the problems. What I found is that sometimes they just use larger numbers on this section that are just harder to process than they are on the math without calculator section, and that's why they allow you to use the calculator. And obviously I'm only blessed to be able to do this because of Beacon of Hope. So here you go, SAT prep for the math with calculator section. This goes for the SAT as a whole. Don't outthink the question. I know the SAT, the vocabulary they use can sometimes be a little odd or confusing. It just seems irregular. It's odd in some cases, but you see through that. That's more takes place in the reading and writing sections more so than it does on the two math sections, but it does come into play a little bit. Sometimes, if you were given an equation, you solve for X as you would typically be done, in the classes you're probably accustomed to. The SAT might ask, after you find X, well, what's X squared then? And it's just like they take an extra step, try to catch students off guard without them looking at that last part and just putting what their gut feeling is instead of actually answering the problem. So just keep your eye out for that through all of these problems. It doesn't happen a ton, but it does happen every once in a while. So just be on the lookout for that. And also content-wise, the SAT, the furthest any questions go is trigonometry. And most of them, very few come from trigonometry, if any of them. We'll go on the next slide. You'll see there's not very many from geometry or trigonometry, either one. But it is possible. Most of the content stops at Algebra 2. And it tests cumulative knowledge. So that includes Algebra 1 as well. So you'll get some questions that are really easy from Algebra 1. So for those of you that have taken through trigonometry, just don't overthink the question. It's very easy to do, I know. But some of these questions are actually very simple just because it's a cumulative test. So what to expect? So there's 4 different sections of the math portion of the SAT. There's the heart of algebra. This is mostly your well, the heart of algebra, you can probably think of some of what it entails, but this is, you're factoring, dealing with functions, whether graphing functions, finding intersections between systems of functions. I think we even deal with inequalities in that section, but that's what that section deals with. Problem solving and data analysis. Most of this is either probability or it'll give you some sort of chart and you just have to look at it and decide what's proper based off of that. Passport to advanced mathematics. This is more of the tricky algebra to do. This is more algebra 2 related topics where it's still algebra, such as the heart of algebra, but this is more handwritten work that you do, whereas the first section, the heart of algebra, is more interpretive. And then the additional topics, you see that there's only 6 questions for that section. That's all geometry and trigonometry. So total for the math SAT portion, you're gonna get 6 questions that relate to geometry or trigonometry. So it's a very small portion. So if that's a weak point for you, don't worry too much about that. We'll go through some of those problems as I continue to make these videos, but don't stress out too much about those portions. And then I wanted to sample a problem. Just a heads up, because all of my videos henceforth will look similar to this, but we'll have a problem. We'll go through the slide. I'll read the problem. If it's multiple choice, I'll read all the answers. We'll go through it. I'll give a brief interval of pause for you guys to think about what the correct answer is. In that time, you're welcome to pause the video if you want to try to work out yourself before I go any further. The next slide is going to be the exact same. It's just going to have a check mark by the correct answer to make sure that I didn't do something wrong in my filming. And then after that, we're going to have a why section that's going to explain why we got the answer we got. And I'll go through most of that in this section, on this first slide, as I work it out by hand. And then I give little tips at the end. And you'll also notice I have color coded. I always put what section the question's from at the very top. And it's color-coded green, yellow, or red, depending on what the perceived difficulty based on College Board standards is. So yellow it's intermediate, red is hard, green is supposed to be an easy question. That's relative. I've been through enough of these questions that some of the ones in the green section I had struggled with more than the ones in the red section, as awful as that sounds. So that's just a little bit of why it looks like it does. With that being said, let's get into this question. So it says the gas mileage for Peter's car is 21 miles per gallon. When the car travels at an average speed of 50 miles per hour, the car's gas tank has 17 gallons of gas at the beginning of a trip. If Peter's car travels at an average speed of 50 miles per hour, which of the functions F models the number of gallons of gas remaining in the tank T hours after the trip begins? All right, so what I like to do with any lengthy word problem is we take anything that looks important. So if we look, it tells us that Peter's car, that's our person we're dealing with, it gets 20 miles per gallon when his car averages 50 miles per hour. So we get 21, and it might have a little bit of lag. It usually takes a minute before it starts getting up to par with what I want it to do. There it goes. And then that's at 50 miles per hour. There it goes. It's slacking again, but that's all right. We'll get through it. All right, then we're told that his car starts with 17 miles per gallon, or 17 gallons total. I'm going to abbreviate that. At the beginning of the trip. So now it says if his car does travel at that 50 miles per hour, which means he's going to average 21 miles per gallon, which of the following functions F, so that's all of our functions, models the number of gallons of gas remaining in the tank T hours after the trip begins, and then it says our A option 17 minus 21 over 50T, F of T equals 17 over minus 50T over 21, F of T equals 17 minus 21T all over 50, and then lastly 17 minus 50T all over 21. All right, so with the information we're given, I'm just gonna work this through. Obviously, once our start is a function relating to time, which is T. All right, so it tells us we start with 17 gallons. And at the end result, it's going to ask us, when we plug in T, whatever number that is, we're going to know how many gallons are left in the tank after that amount. So since we start with 17, it's good to start with 17. Now we have to do a little bit of thinking. For those of you that drive, this probably is a little easier to process. For those of you that don't, though, it should come fairly easy. But the further we drive, if we start with 17 and we don't fill it up anywhere along the way that we're told, we're not going to gain any gas along the way. So we definitely aren't going to add, which if we look at the multiple choice options, obviously they all show a minus sign. So that's why it's minus, because we're losing gallons of gas the further we go. Then we're told, it says miles of gas remain in the tank after, right, okay. So this part, it can actually be a little bit tricky. I actually learned a trick in the physics course to help with this part. So this is 17 gallons, correct? Yes. I guess you can't respond very well on a video like this, but that's all right. So we know we have the 17 gallons, and it's ultimately going to have to be divided by gallons. So when we do this, we know that he's going 50 miles per hour, and that this T is also in hours. So those are the same units. In miles per hour, if we did it in less common form, it would be miles over hours, almost like division. And this would be miles per gallon, would be miles per gallon. So that means it's miles. This is how many miles we get for every 1 gallon of gas, or miles divided by gallons, which is, and then we just change it to the unit rate. And the same here, this means for every 50 miles we go, or for every 50 miles, it takes 1 hour. So on top we have, eventually we're gonna have T, and we're gonna have to figure out where to put it, whether we associate it with the 50 or the 21, and how inevitably we get gallons on this portion so that we can subtract it from the 17 gallons. So we know that T is hours, and this is hours. So our common sense should say these two should probably go together. So we say 50 T. And if we think about the units, T is hours. So that's 50. So it's miles per hour times hours, which means unit wise, we're going to cancel out into miles. All right. So just keep that in mind. You don't have, if you don't, the units doesn't make sense for you, that's okay, don't worry about it. You can do this just logically as well. It's just a different way to process. I like to give multiple perspectives. And then our other number left is 21, which is in miles per gallon. So now we have, given our multiplication here, we have miles over miles per gallon. And then for those of you that remember division of fractions, we would have miles times gallons per mile, because we flip the denominator when it's a fraction. And then our 2 miles cancel out and we'd be left with gallons. And since our units work out, that means inevitably our problem is going to work out. So this would be our function. So unless I did something wrong, the answer should be 70 minus, it should be B. Now I'm going to scroll down and hope I did all of that right. Obviously, even though I am studying to be a math teacher, I still make mistakes. I try not to, especially when I'm filming videos, because it takes a lot more time if I make a mistake. And thankfully I didn't. It does show that B is the correct answer. If it makes you feel any better, I have done all these problems before filming these videos, so I do know what the correct answers are. I have done them correctly beforehand, so this isn't the first time I've done them, so don't worry about that. Also, most of these problems came from College Board, so these are very good examples of what's going to be on the SAT. So keep that in mind with them too. And why was that our answer? And again, like above, I told you I was going to work out most of it while going through the problem, but we knew he got 21 miles per gallon at this average speed of 50 miles per hour. He initially had 17 gallons of gas, and T, which was our variable, was the time in hours driven. And like I said, the tip was just think about the units. The units have to work out. Gallons can't be subtracted from hours, or gallons can't be subtracted from miles. Gallons can only be subtracted from gallons. And then one thing I've noticed, the more SAT problems I went through, this is the absolute most common type of problem in this section, heart of algebra. So if you struggle with this, I recommend finding more examples like this. I think the further we go through these videos, I do have more examples like this. If you're good at this, then you should feel very good about your chances in this section. Obviously, if you remember from, I think it was the second slide, there's a lot of representation from the Heart of Algebra section cumulatively on the Math SAT. So you're in really good luck if you're good at these. If not, that's okay. Obviously, anyone can prove at anything. So there's no need to worry too much or worry at all, really. You're welcome, obviously. This is a video, it's on the internet. You can watch as many times as you need to get the best results until you have a full mastery over it. That being said, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you come back again for the next video.